Hello, this is the Devil on Holiday. In this video, I will be demonstrating how to set up a basic web server that can be accessed from anywhere in the world and how to administer the server locally and remotely whilst maintaining security. This will be continued from the previous video, which covered installation of the virtual server under VirtualBox. Firstly, we need to start the server by just pressing start. Select Ubuntu. You don't need to press enter every time. And here we can see the kernel booting, which is very useful for errors. It will stop if there's an error, and you can go onto Google and search for the error and learn and figure out how to fix it. And here we are at the login screen. Just log in with our username and password. And here we are. Firstly, we need to work out what IP address has been assigned to the server. And we can just type ifconfig to find this out. And here we have the output from ifconfig. As we can see, we've been assigned 192.168.0.15 as our Ethernet 0. And this has been given to us by the DHCP server, which means that this address might not be the same the next day when I boot this up, or whenever. It might be 192.0.16 or 17 or 23 or something else in the future. Now this isn't useful for a server because it means that our IP settings will be wrong when this address is changed, and you'll learn why later. So firstly, we need to set a static IP, and to do this we need to edit this file. Sudo means we're executing this command as a super user in order to edit this file, which is a system file, and nano is our basic text editor. So we press enter. Because we're using sudo, we need to enter our password again. This is an extra level of security. And here we have our network interfaces file. We need to change this line to static. Ethernet 0 is through which this virtual server is connected to the internet. So now we need to assign an address, the same layout as before, but we can set a different IP. So to do this, we need to give this a number that is large enough that it doesn't conflict with any other devices on the network. DHCP devices are generally smaller numbers. Say if this one was 15. So I'm going to give this 100, which is easy to remember and is large enough it won't be conflicting with, say, phones or tablets or laptops or whatever's connected to the network. And there are some more lines we need to enter, and I won't bore you with this. I'm just going to enter these now. Now these are the settings I will be using. Yours might be different because you might be using a different model router. I'm using a Virgin Media router, which means my layout is 192.168.0. something for IP addresses. I know that Belkin routers are sometimes 192.8.2. something. Now you need to make sure you use the same layout or this won't work. To save the file in nano, we use Ctrl O, press enter to overwrite the old file. And to exit, we use Ctrl X. And now we need to reboot the server to apply the settings. Doing a simple reboot is the easiest way, or you can use a CPI shutdown and then go into here and press start again. As you can see, our server is rebooting, and hopefully this will go straight through with no errors, and it does look like it will. And here we are, we're back at our login screen. We log in again, and we can check if our IP address is taken, and as we can see it has. And we can double check this by going to a browser and typing in our IP address. Press refresh a couple of times, and as we can see, our IP address works. And this is a completely unconfigured configured web server, and that's the default page, and it says it works, congratulations. And you should replace this file with other files for your website later on. And it's got some more information about configuration and all this kind of stuff. Now this page is not accessible from the outside world at the moment because the router is not set up to forward the right ports to the virtual server. We can check this by going on by searching what is my IP. This is mine. And as we can see, once we press refresh a few times, we can't get a connection because the port is not forwarded. The router blocks it by default as a measure of security. And to forward the port, we need to go to the router's administration page, which for me is on 0.1. Yours might be different depending on your router. Belkin routers might be 2.1, for example. Normally it says on the side of the router or on the back of the router or wherever it is, there will be a sticker saying this is the administration page. And once you're there, you can log in with your password. And for me, this is obviously a Virgin Media router. So you go to Advanced Settings, you scroll down to Port Forwarding, and this page is where you define rules that when this IP address is put in, these rules will forward the commands to the virtual server or whichever server you specify. And we select HTTP, which is port 80. We type in our fixed IP address. Now we can see why a static one is required, because if this is set to 0.15, as was given by the DHCP server, and it reboots, and it's then given 0.16, this setting won't match and it won't get forwarded to the right port, to the right place. To do this, we just make sure this is enabled, and we press apply and then yes. And here we are, the settings have been applied. You can add more services. For example, I'm going to add an SSH rule as well, which is port 22. We can add 0.100 again, which is our virtual server. Press apply, press yes. And there we are. And to test this, we go back to our public IP and we press refresh. This may take a few moments for the settings to kick in. And here we are. As you can see, with our public IP, we are getting Apache 2 access through, which means now you can use a dynamic DNS provider or a different website name provider to assign this IP to something more memorable, like www.mywebsite.com, whatever like that. Now this is always going to be accessible no matter where you are. So we can log out of here. We can close these. Now we need a way of configuring the server because it's not particularly useful just saying Apache works. So to do this, I like to use a package called Webmin, which is really useful for configuring the web server, Minecraft servers, or whatever. And I really do recommend it. It's a fantastic package. So to do this, to get Webmin, we're going to just go to Google, just type Webmin, go to the web page, and under this download section here, we want to click on Debian package. Ubuntu is based off Debian, so this package is what we will use to install Webmin. We just save the file, wait for this to download. There we are. And as we can see, the file is in our downloads folder. But this isn't very useful. We want it to be on the virtual server here. And how are we going to get it on? If we list the files, we can see the server's empty. So to do this, we can use SSH that we installed before. We can type in our static IP address. It's easy to remember. press enter, and then we can type in our username, which is user, our password that we set when we installed the server, and we just press connect. And here we are. This is the file system inside the virtual server, and we need to put this file. We can copy. We can go into home, user. This is your personal folder, and we can paste the file in here. Wait for it to copy. It takes a couple of seconds. Here we are. Now when we list the files here, we can see it is now inside the virtual server. Now to install this, we need to once again execute the command as the super user. So we use sudo, and we use dpkg-i, and you don't need to type the whole name. What you do is you type the first few letters, so web. You can press tab, and it fills out the rest of the name for you. It's really useful for long file names or complicated names with underscores and all this kind of thing. So it really does make it simpler to type when you can just use tab to fill in the rest of the name. You press enter, type in your password. Now this will come up with a few errors. The installation isn't perfect at the moment. So once this has started to install, it will come up with a few errors because there are some packages that aren't installed yet. But there's a very simple command that will fix this, as I will demonstrate in a few moments. Whilst this is installing, I can show you that in here is the file system for the server, and the default web directory is var www html. This file is what comes up when you go to the IP address. This is the default file, and in this folder is where you put your website files, which we will come to later. And as we can see here, our installation is finished, but there are some errors that we need to fix. To fix these, it's really simple. Sudo get upgrade-f. These commands might seem daunting at first, but once you've used the server for a while, they will become second nature. And this will fix up all the files, download the packages that are needed, and finish the installation of Webmin. And then we can log into Webmin and start configuring the web server and what have you. It takes a couple of moments. And here we are. The install has been completed, and it gives you an address to go to. You can use, now you need to type in HTTPS because the connection is encrypted, so we use HTTPS 680.100. Oh yes, we need to type in our port number, which is 10,000, and it says this is an untrusted connection because of certificates. You click add exception under Firefox, confirm. It's your own server, you know it's going to not malicious. You just use your username, user, and your password, and you can ask to remember this password. I will, so I don't have to enter it every single time. And this is the overview page. It'll give you information on your system, your current CPU usage. You see nothing's really going on, memory usage, disk space used, and what updates there are. So you can click on updates, press update all of these packages, and all that kind of thing. Now this panel at the side is what you use to get around Webmin. So under servers, we can see we've got our web server, which is Apache here. This is the default server here, it's been added automatically. You can go in, you can mess with the configuration, you can see what directory has been assigned. We can change this. Say if you want your server to run out of a different folder or of a different drive, you can always make a new folder. Put your web files in here, and you can change this. What can also be done with Webmin is you can click on unused modules and you can go through this long list and say, for example, you wanted to install Windows file sharing, you just click here and you can see this can be automatically installed by Webmin. You can just click here to have it installed and it will go ahead and it will download the packages for you. So you don't need to use the command line for this, you can just go through Webmin and you can get it to do it all for you. I mean, half the time you don't even need to log into this command line anymore, and eventually this will all be unpacked and installed and ready to use. That's just going through the final setup pages, setup steps, creating a few configuration files, starting the processes, and here we are, it's all finished. End of a huge long page. Click at the bottom, return to Windows file sharing under servers, as we can see here it is. And you can create file shares with share names, directories, all this, and they'll be visible from other Windows computers or from Mac computers or from wherever. So also we've got our MySQL database, and to log into this you need to use root. And then the password you gave to the MySQL installation from the first video I made. Just press save, and as you can see now we've got access to the database server and the default databases that are in here at the moment. Obviously there's not much in here, we haven't configured anything, so it's just the default installation. In the next video I will go over a basic installation of WordPress, which will use MySQL, Apache and other PHP packages that we installed with the LAMP server that we did before. Thank you very much for watching.